You are now listening to Cryptid Cocktail Party. Creatures, let's meet for a drink. It's a treat. Join us in the fight. Cryptid Cocktail Party. Cryptid Cocktail Party.
All right. Welcome back to Cryptid Cocktail Party. This is a show where we have a few drinks, share a few laughs, and take a dive into the unknown. My name is Sarge. Dave is still in Japan. Hopefully they will allow him back into the country at some point. But joining me as a co-host is Amanda.
Hello!
Hello, Amanda. It's been a while since you've been on.
Happy to be back.
And Cam is going to join us a little bit later on today. He's just running a little bit late, but we're under a time crunch. This is a big script, so we're going to get right into things. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Hey, Cam.
Hey! Let's get back to it. Cam, how familiar are you with Dyatlov Pass?
I've heard of it, but I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay. Well, that's okay, because we're not covering that. Amanda, how familiar are you with Dyatlov Pass?
Fairly familiar, but not super familiar.
Okay. The reason I ask is that this story bears some adjacency, but it happened a little bit later in life. So, I'm sure it kind of feels like millions of podcasts and YouTube channels have covered the enduring mystery of Dyatlov Pass. It occurred back in 1959. I'll give you a quick summary. The story goes that 10 hikers went into the wilderness, and only one survived because he quit the trip before it even started. He had gotten sick. While many theories hover around the events of February 1st and 2nd, 1959, there was no definitive proof, aside from some 3D models and the fact that 9 bodies were found, horribly mutilated, in various states of undress, like they were taking part in some kind of weird orgy in the middle of a train wreck. The most likely culprit is a collection of incidents, such as avalanches and stormy weather, and all of that accumulated in a tragic loss of life and one of the most baffling mysteries of the 20th century. If you're familiar with the story and you thought it was fucked up, hold on to your hats. There's a sequel, and it's every bit as haunting as the original, except this time there was a witness. We're going to start at the beginning. The year was 1993. Arkansas native and sentient Big Mac extra value meal Bill Clinton is inaugurated as America's 42nd president. America's newly minted first female attorney general and former NBA power forward Janet Reno oversees the disastrous raid and subsequent worst barbecue ever at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. American motorcycle maker and most trusted brand amongst retired accountants, Harley-Davidson, turns 90 years old. And due to human error, Russian nuclear power plant Tomsk-7 in the secret city of Seversk in Siberia experiences an explosion that led to the surrounding towns being exposed to 100 times the normal level of background radiation, continuing the grand tradition of Russia irradiating its people and then subsequently doing everything possible to pretend it didn't happen. Victims were later rewarded a life-changing $860 each, which roughly works out to be 1 gallon of gasoline per cancerous tumor in today's money. Finally, roughly 150 miles, 241 kilometers southeast of the Dyatlov Pass, according to Google Maps, 6 hikers would die suddenly and mysteriously while hiking back down from the incredibly impossibly hard to pronounce Areal-Tur Peak in the Khamar-Daban mountain range. Now, this range is not only popular, but extremely accessible to tourists given its location. The range is thought to be one of, if not the first range to be mapped by humans, and was actually one of the first to be written about in literature. Located in the Pearl of Siberia, an area which is home to roughly 20% of the planet's fresh surface water, according to an excellent YouTube video I found from Merc docs. The video they have is called the Khamar-Daban Incident, and you should check it out if you want to learn a little bit more than what I'm going to cover today. So, there was a group that was led by a 41-year-old badass named Ludmila Ivanova Korovina. She held the title of sportsmaster on pedestrian tourism, which sounds completely made up. Ludmila was known for her experience and physical toughness. She specialized in wilderness survival and regularly trained hikers in those life skills. Her reputation was so prolific that people would travel from across Russia and the surrounding area to a tourist club called Azimut, where Ludmila was a guide and a teacher. There was reportedly some criticism of Ludmila. Peers would say that she was too focused on survivalism when the situation didn't call for it. She's probably the kind of person who, like, you're out for a walk in a park and you go to the bathroom and she insists you dig a hole even though there's like a porta potty with an eye shot. You know what I mean? She's out there like hunting squirrels in the middle of a street right next to a McDonald's. Anyway, as a hiker myself, I knew people like this. One hiker I knew would actually break the handle of his toothbrush to reduce the weight in their pack. However, this did not deter Ludmila's students who would travel long distances to work with her again and again. The group would consist of 6 young hikers, all nearly half Ludmila's age. The second oldest of the group was a man named Alexander Sasha Krissen. He was age 23. All sources that I found label him as less of a tourist and more like Ludmila's unofficial adopted son. Then we have Tatiana Filipenko, age 24. Denis Shvatskin, I think is the way to say that, at age 19. Valentina Valya Utachenko, age 17. Victoria Vika Zalasova, age 16. And Timur Bapanov, age 15. Ludmila's group was one of 3 hiking in the area at the time. One of the other groups was led by Ludmila's daughter, Natalia, age 16. This is important to note as Ludmila actually planned to hike for Natalia's group as well, which was not uncommon for the club. Ludmila and her daughter's groups intended to meet up during the hike where their paths were estimated to cross on August 5th. I guess we could say the plus side of this group compared to Dyatlov Pass is at least these folks had the presence of mind not to hike in the mountains in the wintertime.
Yeah.
The tentative plan was for both groups to join forces and finish together. The weather for the trip was supposed to be mild. They expected clear skies, mild temperatures, and just to give you an idea, the average temperature in the area for August, usually around 60 Fahrenheit, 16 Celsius. However, anyone who has hiked in a mountain range can tell you that the weather can change quickly. While the average low in the area is roughly 44 degrees Fahrenheit, the record low for that time of year was 21 Fahrenheit or negative 6 Celsius. It's also worth noting the group is prepared for inclement weather as rain is very common in that region at that time of year. On average, there is 15 days of rain for the month of August. Ludmila was reported to have meticulously followed the weather, but with the internet in its infancy, it would have been impossible for her to receive updates on changing weather patterns along the way. The hike started on August 1st or 2nd. The accounts kind of differ. It was pretty uneventful for 2 days. Most accounts say the group made good time, summiting the highest peak in the range earlier than expected. The same documentary that I mentioned earlier, Merc Docs, reports that the group covered roughly 43 miles, which is really fast for the terrain, which is moderately difficult, sitting in the middle of like a 1 through 5 difficulty scale used to rate the area. However, everything would change on August 4th when the weather made a drastic change for the worse. A cyclone out of Mongolia descended on the group. Some sources say the rain began to fall while the group was still hiking, which soaked their gear, adding weight and burning them out. Others say the group was tired from the steady pace and set up camp before the rain. Historic weather data for the region was not tracked until 1999, so there's really no way for us to check for sure.
I mean, it could have been bad squirrel meat, too.
Yeah. Or maybe when they shit in the hole, something crawled up.
Yeah, it's a valid possibility. It is Russia, so...
Anything can happen, especially when you're that close to Mongolia.
And this is a commonly traversed trail?
Very common. This whole area was very commonly hiked, like very well-worn trails. Mm-hmm. The pictures that I saw, there wasn't even a lot of tree cover. So anyway, regardless of the conditions, the location where they camped was very unusual given Ludmila's veteran status. They stopped in a relatively flat area, but it was between two peaks and a gradually sloping ridgeline. The elevation at this spot was about 7,500 feet or 2,300 meters above sea level. So let me explain something. Traditionally, seasoned hikers do not camp above the alpine zone unless you're on like a mountain where you're trying to go further up. So like with Everest, of course, you would camp above that.
Is that because of the air, like the density of the air and whatnot?
That's part of it, but the
Oxygen
other part of
content?
it is that you're just there's nothing to protect you from the weather.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. The alpine zone is an area on a mountain above the tree line but below the snow line. Within this buffer, vegetation is either non-existent or short. It's hardy fauna that can withstand limited growing season and a harsh, unforgiving climate. The alpine zone, it's not the same everywhere. It differs depending on where in the globe you are. For instance, in New Hampshire, in the White Mountain Range, the alpine zone starts at 4,400 feet. There's not a lot of mountains in New Hampshire that are above the alpine zone, honestly, because as we've covered in previous episodes, the Appalachian mountain range is very short because it's so old. So we don't have a lot of mountains that are above 4,400 feet. But in the Himalayas, it is about 12,100 feet, 3,700 meters. In Siberia, the alpine zone begins around 7,000 feet. Okay. Any hikers looking to survive a night in a mountain will opt for below the tree line. This is done to provide a bit of cover from the elements and a buffer to minimize wind. Also, the biggest threat in the summertime is thunderstorms. Think about it this way. If you're the tallest thing in the area, you're most likely to get struck by lightning. So I can't understand her logic. I would never camp on a mountain out from under cover unless it was an emergency. And because if the wind doesn't get you, the bolts of superheated electricity sure as fuck will. Now, some sources speculate that Ludmila's over-the-top survivalism led her to set up in this area as a way to teach her students. Which is stupid. It was really fucking stupid if that was the plan. This theory makes sense for two reasons. First, the tree line was only about 2 miles away. You could literally see it. It's very easy to get to. That would have been like a 30-minute hike with these guys, and you'd be relatively safe. Second, people familiar with the area say that on a nearby peak, there was a shelter complete with dry firewood for just such a turn in winter, such a turn in the weather. And this shelter was only 30 minutes away. A second theory suggests that Ludmila intentionally set up camp on this ridgeline so she would not lose time as she was expected to meet her daughter the next day. I don't want to speculate on either theory too much because I don't know what she was thinking, but if true, either plan would have been a terrifically fucking stupid idea. As you might recall from my theories on from the theories that you might have heard on Dyatlov Pass, this kind of risky behavior rarely ends well. What do we think so far?
And I think that to me, maybe she was so confident with her abilities and knowing that trail that she wouldn't have thought that she needed to go out of her way, especially if she didn't know what weather was coming.
That's really good insight, actually, yeah. Confidence is usually what kills people.
I think the goddamn kids wouldn't listen, and she was hoping that she could pick a couple off.
If you don't behave yourself, I'm going to turn this mountain around. So as night progressed, the weather took a turn for the worse. It was already pretty bad. Located in the area where two climate zones meet. So the formation of cyclones isn't common, but isn't rare either. All accounts I found, 6 different sources, related a drop in temperature, thunder, and even snowfall in the night. The wind picked up rapidly, stretching the limits of their tent. These harsh conditions prohibited them from making a fire, but the group was still in good spirits, despite the weather. Because they're Russians. I mean, shitty life is pretty normal. The next morning at 4 a.m., August 5th, the group woke up to damaged tents and wet sleeping bags. In an effort to get out of the conditions, the group lit a fire, ate breakfast, and set out to meet Natalia and her group. Just prior to leaving, Alexander would complain about not feeling well, but believed moving down the trail would help his condition. This is not uncommon for hikers. I know that many times I've woken up after a full day of hiking with general soreness and discomfort, only to feel great after maybe moving around for about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So later on the 5th, Natalia made her way to the proposed meeting spot. She waited for a bit, but with no sight of her mother, Natalia assumed They were held up by the weather and moved along. She later left the area and returned home. Nothing would be heard from the group until August 10th, when kayakers on the Inikta River
You
fourth
got it.
time's a charm, would see a bloodied young woman standing alone on the shore. The woman on the shore was Valentina, and her story was remarkable and terrifying. Valentina said things started to go wrong almost right after they hit the trail. The weather had only gotten worse since they had woken up, and the conditions were miserable. As you can imagine, the soreness of a long hike, coupled with being woken up by freezing rain and wind, the group was in rough shape and moved really slowly. After more than 1 mile, 2 kilometers, Alexander, also known as Sasha, at the rear of the group began to scream. Valentina says that Alexander was literally frothing at the mouth and bleeding from his ears. Some accounts say he was also bleeding from the mouth and eyes. Ludmila would immediately tend to Alexander and tell the others to continue down the trail led by Dennis and Timur. At only 15, Timur was actually one of the more experienced hikers, so it wasn't unusual, though it might sound that way, by having like a 15-year-old lead the group.
Did they maybe eat something?
I don't know.
I mean, it's Russia at 15. You're reaching the end of the life at that point in time.
Yeah.
He's already got
At
36
that point, you've
kids.
he's been drinking vodka for 10
Yeah,
years.
he's had a potato farm for most of his life. Okay, so accounts differ on the reason why, but the group immediately set out, but then returned shortly after. Some say it was because they were scared, while others say it was because Ludmila called them back. When they reached Ludmila, they saw Alexander's condition had worsened. He had become unresponsive, and Ludmila insisted that Valentina and Victoria go into the woods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right?
For what?
I have no idea. Victoria was the least experienced hiker in the group, and Ludmila almost decided against taking her due to the lack of time on the trail and her habit of loudly complaining. Frankly, I think she made a mistake. I also would have left her home. This is worth noting because of what happens next. Victoria begins acting erratically. Valentina tried to get Victoria to follow, but Victoria would actually start biting Valentina. Undeterred, Valentina resorted to pulling Victoria by her hair. Valentina eventually gave up and once again returned to the spot where Alexander was now laying dead. Nearby, Tatiana was doubled over, literally bashing her own head against some rocks. Timur started grasping at his own throat as if suffocating. Dennis tried to restore order by getting supplies together, but Valentina would note that he quickly dropped the supplies on the ground and fell over. Dennis would then begin to try to pull off his clothing. Valentina would try to help him, but he kicked and he thrashed at her. As panic sets in, so did the symptoms. Some ran away and hid behind rocks while others retreated to their sleeping bags. Valentina reported that all 6 group members bled from their ears and frothed at the mouth. What do you think so far?
This it's a cliffhanger.
It's insane, right?
They were
Yes.
they were pulling their clothes off at a Dyatlov Pass as well, though. And
Well, that was because of
Found with their
hyperthermia,
clothes
right?
off. Nobody knows if they.
Oh.
So what can happen in an avalanche is that your clothes will be taken
Right.
off of you involuntarily by the avalanche. So it could be a case of paradoxical undressing in Dyatlov Pass, or it could have been that they were disrobed by the avalanche.
or it could have also been the aliens. Or
Yeah, or a train wreck orgy.
we just can't say for sure.
We need
You know.
answers. So I've got some direct quotes from the website that I didn't know is what it's called. Dennis began to hide behind stones and run away. Tatiana beat her head against the stones. Victoria and Timur probably went astray. Ludmila Ivanova died of a heart attack. After some time, 2 girls fall at once. They start rolling, tearing their clothes, grabbing their throats. The symptoms are the same. The boy is falling behind them. The girl and the guy are left. They decide to leave the most necessary things in the backpack and run down. The girl leaned over her backpack while she laid out, lifts her head. The last guy with the same symptoms rolls on the ground. The night was spent under a stone on the edge within the forest zone. The trees were falling nearby like matches. In the morning, she rose back. From what I understand, this was a quote from one of the police officers. Seeing that the situation was well and truly fucked at this point, Valentina ran for the trees with limited supplies. She eventually fell asleep. When she awoke, she returned to the group to get supplies. Sources say she knew they were dead before she even saw the bodies based on the condition that when she left them. Again, I don't want to get too deep into speculation, as Valentina has been notorious for her silence on the event due to the trauma she endured, but I wonder if she said she knew they were dead because of the guilt she felt in leaving the group the day before. I can only imagine how horribly this poor girl felt, watching her friends die in such a horrible way. A Russian translator would later say that Valentina reportedly did everything possible to avoid looking at the dead while she gathered supplies from their lifeless bodies. Now, Amanda, you had mentioned had they eaten something. One thing I forgot to say is they all ate the same things.
And Valentina is the one who got away, right? She had no symptoms?
Yeah, she's the one who got away.
Would it be...
She's the one that was bloody by the river?
Yep.
Okay. Why was she bloody if she missed...
We'll get to that. There's still a little bit more.
Okay, I don't want to give my theory on Valentina.
Okay,
yet.
We're almost there. Valentina eventually found power lines and began to follow them until they ended. She then followed the river, hoping to find civilization. It would be about 5 days from the incident for Valentina to finally be rescued. Police wouldn't find the bodies until either the 21st or 26th due to weather conditions. Reports say that the bodies were bloated in various states of undress, very similar to Dyatlov Pass. Animals had also started to eat the bodies in a startlingly similar condition as the victims of Dyatlov. The victims were missing their eyes and their tongues. That's not as uncommon as you think. Animals tend to go for the softer tissue first, so eyes, tongue, face, all that kind of stuff. Autopsy reports are absurd in relation to Valentina's testimony. Ludmila's cause of death was listed as heart attack. The remaining dead were deemed to have died from hypothermia. I have learned a lot about hypothermia through my time in the Boy Scouts, my time in the military, and I've never once heard of bleeding from the ears or eyes as symptoms. The autopsy also listed burst lungs and bruised lungs. I'm sorry, my spelling is terrible. The autopsy also listed bruised lungs and a protein deficiency. Some conditions can expedite the onset of hypothermia, according to the Mayo Clinic. These would be exhaustion, older age, young age, like children, mental problems, like dementia, alcohol and drug use, and certain medical conditions and medications.
So all of those are out because they're all different ages.
Yep. They were all pretty young and healthy. Even Ludmila, I think she was only in her late 40s, I think I said. So it just doesn't, the age is out. Exhaustion would make sense.
Yeah, but
alcohol, maybe, but I don't think that they were like getting shit-faced.
I've been exhausted before. I didn't bleed from my eyes.
Yeah.
Like one or two bottles each. You know, they're doing some light drinking.
So, I have spoken with a friend of mine who is a seasoned EMT and currently is the assistant superintendent of Boston EMS. She's no stranger to hypothermia cases, and when I asked her if she had ever heard of hypothermia leading to bleeding from the head via the eyes and ears, she said a change in altitude could have played a factor. I also have a friend who is a nurse, and she confirmed this. The condition is called barotrauma, which is sudden bleeding from the ears and sometimes eyes caused by a rapid change in altitude. Now, on its own, it may not have been a factor because of high elevation. Even over a 24-hour span, that can cause hypoxia or more red blood cells, which can cause weaker than usual clotting. However, Altitude changes coupled with thinner blood from being cold and wet for roughly 24 hours could possibly explain the bleeding. Another thing to think about is shunting. This is when the body draws blood away from the extremities to warm vital organs like the heart and the brain. More blood in the head could explain more pronounced bleeding than that Valentina described. The somewhat excessive bleeding could have then led to panic and shock. Shock could then have led to paradoxical undressing because when the body experiences shock, it can be tricked into feeling warm even though it's actually going in the opposite direction. Okay. Disclaimer time. Please take all of this with a big grain of salt. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a moron. The two people that I spoke to are very good at their jobs, but they only had my simple brain explaining the circumstances in a short article I sent which highlighted the symptoms. You're certainly not diagnosing anyone. All I'm saying is there probably isn't an easy answer, much like Dyatlov Pass, or rather a collection of circumstances that accumulated possibly into the symptoms that Valentina reported.
Would it be terribly insensitive of me to suggest possibly another theory?
No.
Which is that Valentina is a shapeshifter. She wrecked her whole party, and in order to get away with it, described all of these symptoms. No one could question her because she won't talk about it.
Because she's a shapeshifter, you're saying?
I'm saying.
Why would she kill everyone?
When she's in her other form, she is not human there. She doesn't have human emotions. So she has like
It's not.
werewolf emotions, maybe?
It's not even supernatural. That's just kind of something that happens.
Yep.
I mean,
Sometimes people become werewolves.
when you're in the woods,
What are you gonna do?
What are you going to do?
what are you gonna do?
You fucking solved it.
I mean, obviously, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, of course. Clearly, it was Yetis.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a crazy, crazy story, and it really doesn't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, I've never heard of this.
So you did not explain why she was bloody.
Oh, I'm sorry. I might have skipped over it by accident. She had to hike down by herself, and she was lost in the woods and in considerable shock from what she experienced. So she was just wandering through the woods. She actually found power lines and then followed the power lines along the riverbank. And actually what happened is she found a village, and when she got to the village, she thought she was saved until she realized that it was abandoned.
Oh, well, that would suck.
Yeah, but then the kayakers found her and rescued her. So I'm sure she had some blood from the various bites she received and everyone's bodies when she was like gathering supplies. And then she's probably just got tore up going through the brush.
Yeah, I mean, being a werewolf didn't help either. I mean, that's...
Yeah. I mean, I imagine this.
You're gonna get bloody.
Yeah.
If you are werewolfing, it's a messy business.
All right, guys. So that's the story. Incredibly insane story. If you want to know more, look up Merc Docs, the Khamar-Daban Incident on YouTube. That's MERC Docs. I also checked Medical News Today, Encyclopedia.com, Thought Catalogue. I even found a Russian website called Areal-Tur. I'm just going to post these links in the Wikipedia,
all made up
Medium,
words.
Strange Outdoors, a website called That I Did Not Know, and the Cleveland Clinic. So there's all kinds of stuff here. But yeah, that's all I got. If you like this, please find us on Instagram at Cryptid Cocktail Party. Amanda, you want to share your Instagram?
Oh yeah, I'm Tattered Seafoam, and that's all one word.
All right, and Cam, you got anything to promote besides Narragansett?
My friends, a bunch of my friends are in a band called the Salem Wolves. They just released a new album. It's a covers EP, and it's called Salem Wolf's Greatest Hits because it's a covers EP, and all
Oh,
the songs are great. And I did background vocals on a few of them, so check them out. The Salem Wolves, they're freaking amazing. And if you're in New England, they're gonna be touring all over the
Awesome.
place, and I will buy you beers because I go to all the shows.
ugh,
And we
Burnett.
will drink Fernet and Gansets and have a good time.
After the Pride Parade incident, I'm good on Fernet for the rest
Fair
of my
enough.
life. All right. Also, Drink Narragansett Beer. They're our sponsor, and we love them very much. All right. I love you and goodbye is up to you guys. Do you want to do the countdown?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Okay,
3,
2,
2,
1,
1.
go.
I love
goodbye,
you
and I
and
love you.
goodbye. Oh, fuck.
Oh, son of a bitch.